Any listeners or watchers of this short podcast. This is our first employer-facing podcast for the Reading Internship Scheme. So this sort of episode is all about speaking with Phil from Kymira, who's taken plenty of interns from us in the past, but I'll let you explain more about that. So you can sort of see firsthand what the Reading Internship Scheme can do for organisations, and also that you can come and speak to us if you need any sort of advice or help on sort of next steps. So without further ado, I'll introduce myself first. So as you both know, I'm Holly Forsyth and I look after the Reading Internship Scheme programme. Phil, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Sure. So Phil Konofsky, I'm the Chief Technology Officer at Kymira. Kymira is a relatively small company, which is why the CTO is essentially taking part of the recruitment for interns. But I mostly look at all the different interns we've taken over the years, and for different departments, not just, let's say, product development or R&D, but even marketing and sales and what have you.
Yeah, fantastic. Pranel, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. I'm Pranal, and I'm currently working with the employer engagement team as an employer engagement intern. And yeah, happy to be on board.
Thank you. Okay, thank you both. So without further ado, we will go ahead with sort of the first question from me. So starting sort of right from the top, Phil, how did you find out about the Reading Internship Scheme programme? If you can cast your mind back that far, because I know that was quite a while ago.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. So, so for a bit of context, I am actually a graduate of the University of Reading, and the founder of the company is also a graduate of University of Reading. And so Kymira was founded back in 2013 by TMR founder. And so we obviously had a very close connection and a close link with the university. And you know how it is, even though you leave the university, if you're still in the area and you're still working and wanting to take whether it's placement students or applicants from a university, you still keep those sort of connections. And so the very first intern that I think we had taken might have actually been before I joined the company, but I'm not entirely sure. But essentially, yeah, it was one of those schemes where for a small company, especially when there's only one or two people at the time, being able to have a part paid student come help us essentially is absolutely invaluable. Students are, and being frank, students are cheap compared to other workforces, but also they're very keen, they're very happy to learn. I think I can honestly say we've had very positive experience throughout the entire time we've been having interns. Even let's say the interns that weren't necessarily the most let's say didn't have the hardest skills, like the technical interns who did computer science or what have you, but even those that were maybe studying less rigid courses, they were very helpful, even if all they did was help us on day-to-day things like manage emails or fill in a sales hopper to help the sales team. So our experience with it has been fantastic throughout, which is why year on year, Holly, we have a chat and say, hey, how many can I have this year? Yeah, I always want to push it because I want to try to get as many as we can, because it's great value for money. At least we found it to be great value for money. The interns have always been keen. I think, I don't know if it's just Reading University students, but I think, when you're young and full of energy and want to try new things, you're usually more willing to, go ahead and just go for it. Yeah. And especially if you're already applying for an internship, you kind of already have that mindset that, you're doing this because you also want to try learn new things, see what's out there, what have you. So yeah, overall, it's been quite a good experience for us. I remember, I think we were lucky one year where we got 3 interns, wasn't it? I think it was like 2015, 2016. But back when
in the early days when I wasn't there.
Yeah, so we were able to sneak 3, and that was great because essentially that doubled the company for the summer, which was fantastic. And I think we had 2 of them doing sales and one of them doing I think marketing. Yeah, one of them doing marketing, 2 of them doing sales. And what was really impressive was within a couple of weeks already, one of the interns made a really good sale for us, and we're like, whoa, okay, this is really good. And it just goes to show, you don't necessarily need someone with a couple of years of experience already in there under their belt to really have an impact on a company, especially if you're small.
Yes, yeah, definitely. And considering all of that, in terms of the fact that obviously you're quite a small company, and doing this, I imagine, quickly is quite important because there's not a lot of time spare to sort of go through a huge recruitment process. Have you found sort of the way that the scheme allows you to advertise for an intern and all of those bits and pieces, has that been quite well suited to the time that you have spare in terms of putting commitment into that, or has that been something that's been quite time consuming over the years that you've done the scheme?
No, it's been pretty good. So for example, so for those listeners who maybe are first time and don't understand how this process goes, for us, it's basically I call you up, Holly, and say, listen, I want a couple of interns. You give me, and you tell me, and then I give you a couple of job descriptions, and it's kind of out of my hands at that point. You know, you guys put it on the website, or historically have put it on the website, or nowadays we can just put it on ourselves. Which again, once you have the description, is just dragging and dropping text and pressing approve. Once that's done, it's advertised on the Reading University jobs vacancies platform. You guys obviously screen anyone that's coming in and give us a list at the end of the period, and it's up to us to just see who we like and who we want to interview. So in terms of time scale, it's very good for us. And in terms of amount of effort that, for example, I need to put into it, it's not very much, if I'm completely honest. It's mostly chasing up my heads of departments to go, hey guys, can you write me a quick job ad, and then hop in online.
Yeah, definitely. And last one from me for the moment, because I know Pranel's got some questions for you as well. But in terms of, again, casting your mind back over the years, or more recently, up to you, but in terms of the sort of amount of applicants that you get and things like that, have you been sort of pretty impressed with that over the years? I know probably from year to year it differs in terms of different job, internship descriptions that you might be, advertising. But how have you sort of found that?
Yeah, so it's a bit of a balancing act, right? Because you don't want to have too many, but you also don't want to have too few. And I haven't had an experience yet where the number that we've gotten hasn't been good enough. So I think that the last one we did for one of the roles in our data science team, I think we had 5 interns, if memory serves, or five applications for the internship, and that was a great number because a lot of them were all computer science, so there's not really much differentiation in terms of their education. So you don't necessarily need to look at 10 different computer scientists for an internship, of course. But with 5, you get a good idea of, okay, well, who's done a few extracurricular activities, who's got a couple of things on their CV which might impress, and that's really all we needed. So of the 5, we took 3 to next stage interviews, which obviously in these days it's all remote on Teams, Microsoft Teams. And then we picked from the 3, and that's, in terms of turnaround, that was very quick. That was within a week, I think. We had decided, all right, who we wanted to go for. Took the 3 to internship, picked the candidate we wanted, and very quick. As soon as I said, we want to offer you the position, email back saying, really happy for it, what have you. Contract sorted, and then just updated you and got the ball rolling, really, from the sort of admin and invoicing part of the process.
Thank you for explaining all of that, because I know, for, like you say, those that are listening that haven't done it before, it's probably really valuable to hear that from you in terms of the process and how quick it can be, and how you've managed to sort of operate that. Pranel, I'll hand over to you for a moment, because I know that you've got some questions as well that you want to ask.
Yeah. So I mean, you did mention that you shortlisted about 3 candidates from 5 in your last vacancy. How was that interview experience with students? How did you find that?
Yeah, it was interesting. I mean, obviously, something like this is maybe their first time, right, doing it, which is fine. I think having been on both sides of the aisle, one getting interviewed, and I remember back in the day when I was a student at Reading, I did some internship schemes as well over the years, and I was sort of now being an employer of students. I think, you get it. It's not. We know it's, as employers, it's the student's first time, so it's not gonna. It's that they may be a bit nervous, or they might mess up on a question or what have you. But it's really easygoing because, the role is an intern, right? We're expecting that someone's not necessarily going to know everything, and there is an expectation that, okay, maybe the first week of the internship we might need to train them up a little bit, get them used to the system, to working, and so on. But I mean, that's fine. That's expected. So. Overall, it's not really a problem for us, even if the interns weren't necessarily the most experienced people, because again, it's an internship. You know, you're getting someone for 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks. You really need them to know the one specific thing you want them to know, and then come in and do it and basically be passionate about it. If they're passionate about it, then you know they're going to pick up whatever it is you need them to pick up, essentially.
Yeah. No, totally agree with that. I mean, as a student, I've had so many interviews, and I think what resonates with me is showing that, you know, you've done your research, and the employers also want to see that.
Yeah, that helps. That's a nice trick I always ask. Like, oh, you know, what did you think about Kymira when you first looked us up? I almost assume they've done the research, because
Yeah.
I'm sure as students you guys get hammered in. Oh, it's your first interview. Make sure you've done your research, and yeah, no, but it's
Yeah, I mean, you've been on the RIS program for such a long time now. So, I mean, obviously from last year you had the virtual internships, but
Mhm.
before that you had office-based internships. How's that difference been, office-based versus virtual?
So it does mean that we need to be a little bit more specific with the tasks we give our interns. So back when it was more office-based, usually we'd have a bit more fluidity in what we could get them to do. You know, they could come in, maybe in the first couple of days, try out a couple of different things, and then we'd sort of assess, okay, what's actually the thing you want to do for the next 4, 6, or 8 weeks. Nowadays, with it being virtual and essentially remote, where the intern is either at home or what have you, and not really coming in for any reason, it's very much okay, let's pick a project and let's advertise the project, or let's say the 3 or 4 projects we want an intern to do, and we're specific enough without giving away too many details. We say, okay, we want an intern to do this or this or this, essentially. Come in, tell us what, how you are, what you like, what to do, and then we sort of ask that in interviews as well anyway, like which one of these 3 projects that we've sort of advertised would you like to do, and then that just gives us a good idea of what the intern will be doing, and that does help post the application process, because then we know we've got that bit of work for 4 weeks or 6 weeks or 8 weeks. It's covered by somebody, and there'll be a bit of supervision, what have you, but that's fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the main difference is for employers in these new times, this brave new world, is do think about the task you want that student to do. Bear in mind they are a student. They're going to need a little bit of training and a bit of getting up to speed. And whether it's 4, 6, or 8 weeks is going to be enough time for them to do it. Advertise that, and you'll basically get the students who are very much interested in doing that. So it actually makes your life a lot easier anyway.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. Obviously, currently, like, I'm doing a virtual internship, and the projects that I've been given or have to do helping the uni team, I feel like you do get a bit of flexibility, but then you also need to take that initiative to sort of do the work. Yeah, I think I'll hand over back to Holly now.
Okay, thank you. The structure's working quite well, isn't it? Taking it in turns.
Yeah.
And hopefully for those who are listening, it's nice to hear from Pranell as well, obviously coming from doing an internship at the moment with us. So equally hearing obviously your experience with interns, Phil, but then meeting Pranell and seeing how you are as well, hopefully is nice for those that are watching / listening. So you've sort of covered this already, particularly in terms of when you've done remote working recently with students, but are there any particular things that stand out to you or your team that you've discussed in the past that have come out of working with an intern? Is there a particular project or a time where you think, wow, that intern really helped develop X? Or is there any particular sort of memories, I suppose, that you have around that?
Yeah, so I'll answer that in 2 parts, actually. The first part is when it comes to deciding projects and so on, because now there's almost an expectation that we're going to get interns. The team does think about, what projects they want to give interns.
Yes.
And these tend to be low priority projects and usually foundational projects, like, let's experiment with an idea, but instead of having one of the other staff members who's already maxed out in their capacity, look, we'll get an intern probably in a couple of months because spring term is starting or summer term is starting or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, let's set it out, come to Phil and say, hey, can you advertise for this next round? And then that way that's sorted, and that kind of does help ease off the pressure on these tasks that are maybe more laborious, but not necessarily as interesting if you've been doing this for a couple of years and it's like you're more a manager than an than a day-to-day person.
Sure, yeah.
So that's the first part. So definitely something to think about, and we've almost ingrained it in our ethos that, oh yeah, we're going to get a couple of interns soon. What project? How many can I have this year, Holly?
Yeah.
And that sort of thing. So the second part is, to be honest, there have been quite a number of standout interns. There wasn't one in particular who I'd say, oh yeah, this person was miles ahead of everyone else. No, we've had a bit of a spectrum of people who've been really good, okay, and a couple of others who've been maybe like, yeah, okay, pretty normal. But even I don't like to say it this way, but the worst interns we had still did an excellent job.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it was absolutely fine. And even if all they did was record data for us, said, look, here, take some of the systems we're developing, go for a jog, go for a run around the park, record some data for us. That was still something that one of us didn't need to do. And they get to play around with some really cool kit, because it's very interesting for them coming in.
Yeah.
They never tried it before.
Yeah.
For us, who've been working for it for the last 18 months, 24 months. So, oh God, I need to go around again and collect more data. No,
Yeah. Yeah, sure.
And I did mention earlier that one intern back early days, 2015, 16, got a great sale for us. So that's really good. We're still, keeping that relationship with that client as well for repeat orders.
Yeah.
That's also be very useful. But they've all been really, really outstanding, if I'm honest. So yeah, hope that
Brilliant.
answers it.
Fantastic. And one more from me before I hand back to Pranell. Just going off of what you said in terms of working with obviously interns that have proved to be really beneficial for Kymira. Is there sort of any interns that you've stayed in touch with, even maybe that you're not necessarily in touch with now, but sort of shortly after the internship finishes, have you stayed in touch with any, or have they moved on to do any other tasks or anything for Kymira outside of the internship they had with you?
Yeah, so to be completely honest, a lot of the interns, especially within R&D, who, for example, we had the last cycle, we kind of kept them on, and we're just paying them now instead of the 50% contribution. We was like, yeah, we actually need them to continue doing this. So can we continue having you on stuff? So
yeah,
we've actually done that, and that's worked really nicely, because again, they've come in for six weeks, let's say. They've gotten stuck in a project, and it's looking really good, and their internship has come to an end, and oh look, it's summer break, and it's like, oh, do you want to work for us over the 3 months of summer? And they're like, yeah, why not? So that's always been helpful. We're now actually at a position where one of the interns from last year, so she's actually finishing up, and we're actually in talks with her for a graduate position, so she's going to
fantastic
more permanently. Likewise, I think a year before that, we had someone on internship on, I think it was a 6-week, and then they joined the company and were working with us for over a year until they moved on to another position, which is fine. That's early days. Of course, you're going to be bouncing around, but it was great. So yeah, overall, if we've had good interns and they've done great work for us, yeah, we're going to keep them on.
Yeah, definitely. Good stuff. Thank you. And I'll hand back to you now, Pranell, for the last couple of questions.
Yeah. So, I mean, you've kept coming back to do the Reading Internship Scheme, over and over again. But every time you finish it, what has been your biggest takeaway every year?
Every year, that's an interesting one. So I would say that across all of the internships that we've had, or most, let's be fair, about most of the internships, it's definitely been interesting to have someone come in for a very short period of time who's sort of an external, right? So they come in and they've got a whole new perspective on how you're doing, right? And it's kind of the benefit you get when you get a new employee. They come in, they look at the way you do things, and they think, oh, actually, have you guys thought about doing something in a different way? And that's really novel, and it's really good to have from a new employee. But obviously, then they get stuck in, and then like you, they become just totally focused on everything. But with interns, it's every year we're getting fresh, young, intelligent students coming in and looking at our system or looking at our business, depending on the kind of internship role they're in, and they suggest, oh, have you thought about doing this way? Or we've given them free rein to figure out how to solve a problem, and they've solved it in a way we didn't even consider. And it's like, oh, that's very interesting. So overall, I'd say, in a nutshell, it's a very good turnaround of fresh perspective for your company. which is great. It's always good to have someone come in and say, listen, have you thought about doing something this way versus the way you've been doing it for the last, 7 years?
Yeah. No, I think that's pretty good because, again, same experience, but as a student going into the careers team, I'm sure Holly can agree as well. There's some ideas that I've come up with, and it's just like, oh, we didn't think about it this way, or
Yeah, I can definitely vouch for that. That's happened a few times at least.
yeah. I mean, okay. Then to just finally wrap up the whole conversation, what do you think as an employer, other potential employers should know about the scheme?
I think if I was to summarize it, it's great value for money. It's a way of getting some new talent in who may eventually join your company once they finish graduating. So it's a good way to source local talent. Before any of the big guys take them away. You know how it is, especially in tech. Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, generally it's nice. It does help drop the average age of the company as well to get some young blood in. And yeah, I think that pretty much sums it. It's good value for money. You get great access to talent, and it just gives you a new perspective on how you might be doing things that you've been doing for many years.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Perfect.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Pranell, as well, for asking your questions. Thank you, Phil, obviously, for joining us and sharing all of that with us. Hopefully anybody that is listening or watching can see how it's benefited Kymira and how sort of year on year, it's nice to know that you embed the scheme in part of what you do in the roles that you have available. That's brilliant. Okay, thank you.
Thanks a lot.